I don't want to say something that's not him
because
I don't want to offend him.
Dick.
Yeah.
Right. And then he's like a micro
date.
penis guy.
Yeah.
Like, right.
Or sometimes guys don't have control of that.
No, I meant that was an extreme example. Okay. But right, we don't want to say the wrong thing.
Right.
It's fine. You can be a size queen. It's not a problem. My girlfriend is. That's okay.
Nice.
Welcome to Secrets of a Sugar Daddy. Here's your host, Marcus.
Welcome to another episode of Secrets of a Sugar Daddy. And in the studio today, I have the long-lost Angie.
Hello.
How are you?
I've been good. How are you?
Good. I'm glad you're back. I don't know where you've been, but
it's only been a few weeks.
It seems like it's been a long time.
It does.
Glad to have you back because we've got an interview today with a men's relationship coach.
Oh,
and
really?
I think, he's probably the first one that we've had on here he's not a sugar daddy.
Okay.
But talking to him prior to the podcast, he's very familiar with Seeking.com and very familiar with sugar daddy, sugar baby situations, and actually coaches his clients on how to deal with those. And so I'm just going to give you a little bio. His name's Ryan Black. He says, once upon a time, I was just another guy who thought he'd never be great with women. I loved science and philosophy and assumed women would never want to be with a guy like that, right? Like so many guys, I was introduced to pickup artist materials, but still wasn't getting the results I desired. The truth is, most dating advice you hear is bullshit. Yes, even some of the best pickup artist stuff. Now I travel around the world teaching guys how to meet amazing, smart, and sexy girls in everyday situations while being completely authentic. And welcome to the show, Ryan. How are you today?
I'm very well. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, very excited to have you on the show. And I have your website up. I'm going to go ahead and plug it now, and then you can plug it again in the back. It's ryanblack.us. Is that correct?
That's the one. Thanks so much.
Yeah, so you have an accent, but
I do, yes.
You were born in the U.S.
That's right. I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, but to two New Yorker parents, but grew up with them in London, which is why I speak and spell correctly.
Wow.
Wow.
He's got one of those European attitudes, I can tell. No, we love a good accent here. So you are a coach to men. Tell me a little bit how you became that. Like what got you into that? Because you do that full time, right?
Yeah, I do that full time. And my entry into it was not in any way because I want to become a coach and help guys or anything like that. It was completely just me trying to figure out how I could get any kind of results in my dating life or have any control whatsoever over it. And that was pretty much just spending my whole life from early on, from 11, 12, 13, when you just start to have those feelings for the opposite sex. You're not sure really how to communicate it, how to, what to do about it. And my early experiences sort of trying to communicate that just ended up with horrible reactions, literally sort of crying and running out of the room level, like in all seriousness.
Yeah.
And so that taught me, which I think it teaches a lot of guys, society and schooling and even well-meaning parents and religion, kind of teach young boys that the natural sexual desire that they have for the opposite sex is somehow wrong, even morally wrong, and they should hide it and repress it and not express it. And so that was my default go-to of just like take all those feelings, just repress them, and just don't, just be okay with the fact that you're kind of a dorky looking kind of science nerd guy, and just accept that and be okay with it. And the idea that you're gonna date a beautiful woman is just outside of your reality, and just be okay with that. And that was pretty much my life for most of my life.
No success when you were in high school, or is that where you started struggling and you noticed that? Because that's where I started struggling.
Zero success in high school. And I was in a weird school in the UK where it was traditionally an all-boys school, which doesn't help.
Right.
And then since the 1970s or so, they added girls, but only in the last couple of years. So for the last 2 years of the high school, girls just suddenly came in. And so I'd grown up in this all boys school and I had friendships with all these guys or whatever. And then suddenly these girls arrived and I just had absolutely, it's like, it was like aliens landing. I was like, how do I speak to these creatures? Like I literally had no idea. And it also didn't help that I did all hard science subjects, which meant that there was rarely a girl in any of my classes anyway. I arrived in university, still a virgin, still no real understanding of how to communicate or speak to women.
Mm-hmm.
And as luck would have it, I managed to kind of awkwardly stumble into my first relationship. And that was it was a girl who was in one of my philosophy classes. We ended up talking and we were just friends for like months and months and months. And all of the people around us, our mutual friends, were like, guys, you obviously like each other. Like, can you just hook up already? And I was like, oh, but I don't know if she likes me. And she was like, oh, but I don't know if he likes me. And so we just like awkwardly kind of revolved around each other for a while until finally I got the first piece of dating advice I ever got. My first dating advice technique from a friend of mine who was like, okay, next time you guys are hanging out, this is what you're going to do. At the end of the night, when you say like good night to her or whatever, and she goes home, just kiss her lightly on the forehead. And if she smiles, it means she likes you back. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it. And so I did that and she smiled and I was like, oh my God, I think she likes me. So I invited her on a date and we ended up dating, and we ended up dating all the way through university. So most university experiences for most people is like, you're going out, you're being super social, you're meeting a lot of people and having a lot of usually fairly short-term relationships, right? And for me, university was just one big party I wasn't invited to because I'd like found, in my mind, from my experience, the only woman that had ever been like interested in me at all. So I was like, cool, great, keep hold of this. And so I just dated her the entirety all the way through university. And so then I was faced with this dilemma, which is it's coming to the end of university. We're going to graduate, we're going to move on, we're going to go and enter the world of work and potentially be in different cities. So I was like, well, do I marry the only girl I've ever been with? Or
That's a dilemma.
Is it possible that maybe I could find somebody else who would, show any interest in me whatsoever? And in my brain, when I was like, well, statistically, Ryan, unlikely. So I was faced with a dilemma. And so I was speaking about this to my college roommate at the time, who then the next day was like, I have the solution to this dilemma for you, and handed me this book that looked like a leather-bound black Bible. And I was like, how is the Bible going to help me resolve this, Andrew? But it wasn't the Bible. It was a copy of Neil Strauss's 2006 book, The Game. And that introduced me. That was his, if you don't know the book, that was his kind of going in and researching and being part of the pickup artist community, where he was mentored by Eric von Markovic, aka Mystery, who then got his own show, VH1's The Pickup Artist, and became like the world's most successful pickup artist or whatever.
Interesting.
So I read this book and I was like, oh my God, psychological techniques I can use to manipulate women into sleeping with me regardless of how attractive I am.
That's fantastic.
That's exactly what I need. And these techniques are based on science, my favorite thing. So I was like, yeah, cool. And I got through the book in like 2 days. And then this same friend was like, hey, there's a party happening a few doors down from us over the weekend. I was like, oh, we can go and use the things from the book. And he's like, yeah. And so we go. And
let's do an experiment.
yeah, right, literally, right. And so we go in, and there's this girl there, and we start talking to her, and then she says something we didn't like. She's like, "Oh, you guys in this frat, and we didn't like that frat, or something." So then we both nod to each other like knowingly, because in the book there's this technique called a body rock, where if the girl says something you don't agree with or whatever, you make as if you're going to leave, like you literally like turn away as if you're going to go. And so we're like, oh, we could do the thing where we do that. And so we look at each other like 1, 2, 3, and then we start moving away. And she goes, no, come back. And in my head, I'm like, oh my God, it's working.
It's working.
The techniques are real. And then, but what was crazy is within like 30 minutes of arriving at that party, for the first time in my entire life ever, I'm now, whatever, 24 or something. I don't know when you graduate university, 22. For the first time in my entire life, I'm surrounded by, there was like 6, 7 girls, all surrounding me, all looking at me, all smiling, all listening to what I'm saying. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. So I sort of fell hook, line, and sinker for this, this pickup artist material stuff, and spent the next 3 years being like, right, I've got it. I'm gonna make this work. I don't need to marry the only girl I've ever been with. I can go out, I can meet more attractive women, and I can use this stuff. And yet 3 years later, I was absolutely nowhere. I got no results with any of this stuff.
Really?
I got a lot of conversations.
I totally expected that.
Yeah.
I totally expected that.
Ha ha ha! You're funny or whatever. But then within 15 minutes, like, oh, it was great meeting you anyway. Bye.
Like,
and
that was cute.
Nothing would actually happen.
Yeah.
And what I realized later, once I found what actually does work, is all these techniques we're doing, and I think all these techniques do for a lot of guys that find this material, is the following. Number one, you're plastering over your own insecurity with yet more defense mechanisms.
Yep.
Essentially. Number two, you're saying stuff that was written by somebody else. And so you're basically performing these routines, which at best sort of protects you from this feeling like, oh, I won't be rejected if I do this right. But what it does is what you're saying about yourself is who I actually am is not enough.
Yeah.
I can't be who I am.
Yeah.
I have to say these lines that like super alpha guys made for me, and essentially pretend to be somebody else. This is why this stuff didn't work. 3 years later, I met somebody who is no longer part of the community, but he was teaching the exact opposite to all of this stuff, right? So Mystery was before he was a pickup artist, was a magician. And so essentially what does a magician do? Well, he's basically playing a trick on you. He's deceiving you by creating this appearance that this illusion is happening, when in fact it's not, in order to get your applause and oh, wow, you're amazing, right? Deeply, deeply, essentially manipulative and disingenuous at its very core. And the guy who I learned from, who actually knew Mystery years before, was a comedian. And to me, in my experience, I absolutely love stand-up comedy. Great comedy comes from a place of truth, right? It comes from a place of self-acceptance, of being able to stand on stage, know that the audience is judging you about how you look and whatever it is, and having the self-acceptance to be able to make a joke about that, right? To stand up on stage and be like, I know what you're thinking. I didn't realize Ed Sheeran and Chris Martin had a love child.
Right. I think what you're saying is that it's really important to, like, authenticity ultimately is what is most important. It's kind of like a company that has an amazing commercial and they've done all the market research and they've learned exactly what really makes people want to buy and go to their store, and people get excited about it. And they walk in the store, they're there, and then the product is not as good as they thought it was going to be. So they're not going to stay.
Exactly right. It's exactly right. It's the difference between feeling that you need to use all these, and the same thing with like more old school pushy salespeople, and like the more modern way to sell, right? Before it was all these like tricks, like, oh, you're Visa or Amex or whatever. And it's like you use this closing technique to sort of NLP someone into buying something. And what happens with all of those techniques is that after a while you get buyer's remorse. You get people being like, oh, I actually felt kind of pushed and manipulated into that sale. And so they regret it. Versus the more modern way, which is about asking questions and finding out what the issue is, and then presenting the solution as something that is genuinely going to help this person. You create an internal shift. And so they decide that they actually want this thing. And so you completely reduce.
Yeah. So you got really good at selling yourself. It's just that once they did this test drive, they didn't want to buy it.
No, I mean, the thing about it was this, is that with the pickup artist stuff, it fundamentally comes from a place of
right.
creating a facade, creating an image right? Of, oh, I am whatever, I am alpha, I am confident, I am all these things. With this idea like, oh, all women want a guy who is whatever, confident and successful and knows everybody and has social proof and all this stuff.
Right.
So I need to pretend that I am those things so that she'll be attracted to me. And that at absolute best, what happens is she indeed is attracted to those things. And then you form a relationship on the basis of a whole bunch of lies. And then when you start to actually peel back those layers and start to be yourself around her, she goes, who the fuck is this totally different person?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And at worst, which is for the most part what happened to me, and I think happens to a lot of guys that try to pick up artist material out, is women are very good. I'm sure you're very good at this, and you experience this often when guys kind of try and hit on you in a bar or club situation, is they're very good at picking up on there's like something off with this guy, right? So for as long as the guy's using and saying all these techniques and doing all the stuff, it just comes off very disingenuous.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you just feel this need to like poke and prod and figure out, is this guy for real? Like there's something off with this guy. And that to me is what comes off as creepy for women. And it's just this feeling of like there's something off. And that's what it creates for as long as you're doing this, like doing all this material. So what I found is this is actually a way to communicate who you actually are, right? Be okay with yourself enough to, instead of feeling that you need to pretend to be somebody else and do somebody else's lines, you can actually just authentically express yourself. And to me, yeah, not 100% of people are going to like it, but the people that do, you resonate and can connect with somebody like instantly and effortlessly.
So how did you go about coming up with this new system, I guess, or this kind of untaught system that you now coach, and testing it? How did you test it out to a point where you thought, oh, I'm onto something and I need to teach men this method?
So I had the initial influence from this guy who'd previously been a comedian, and he'd spent a lot of time going out and testing this stuff. And a lot of the initial kind of approach and starting a conversation came from techniques and principles of comedy, right? So the idea of going in and creating and building a bit of tension before you deliver, for example, a compliment or an introduction, right, comes right from comedy, where if you just like rattled through a setup and then a punchline like immediately, it wouldn't have any effect. But if you're able to set up the setup and then leave a pause or extend a little slightly, you build up the tension and this anticipation so that when you deliver whatever the punchline is, it has a massive emotional impact. And one of my favorite examples of that in comedy is Norm Macdonald's The Moth Joke, which if you haven't seen is one of my favorite. He was such a great comedian, and it's such a great joke because what he does is he takes a classic old one-liner and he extends the setup for literally minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes. And it creates so much tension in the audience, like he almost risks losing the audience, that when he delivers this like kind of corny one-liner thing, it has such an impact and is so much more funny.
I'll have to look it up. Yeah.
So this comedian was very good at doing that. And so I just took a lot of these principles and all of these things, and we just went out. There was this time in London, especially around 2008, 9, 10 or so, when there was a bunch of guys who kind of co-created the system that's now known as the London Day Game System that a few guys kind of co-created. And we just went out and spent a lot of time honing each one of these steps and these principles until it was something that was not only working for me, but was something that you could reliably teach to somebody who could then follow the steps and be able to implement it. And the important thing is how it contrasted to pickup stuff is it's not specific lines you need to say. It's not specific things you need to do. What it is structures and frameworks that's based on actual principles of human psychology that you then fill in your own words with. So what that does is the structure does the work of making it effective. And then by filling it in with your own words and your own personality, you make it authentic.
Mm-hmm. Now, is this something fairly easy to learn? Because it's pretty involved and it seems like there's a lot of steps. I'm going to want something that's I can implement fairly easily. Do you have a way of coaching men to naturally kind of put that into their game?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way I do it is it's a hybrid. It's a kind of a hybrid model. So there's an in-person workshop where we go out and we kind of test this stuff out and they can see it for themselves. And then there's an online course component. But for example, the structure for starting a conversation, and this is with anybody, it's not just an attractive woman that you want to meet. It's like literally how to start a conversation in a very emotionally spiked way, right? So one of my friends and mentors, Marcus Oki, defines charisma as the ability to be able to repeatedly and reliably inspire emotion in somebody else. And so this structure allows you to create an emotion within the first 10 seconds of meeting somebody, and it involves 5 steps and takes about 10 seconds. So if you can remember 5 things, then you're pretty much good with that. The conversation cycle is literally 3 steps, and that enables you to be able to really connect and get past the surface level kind of small talk down to the real emotions behind who a person is and why they do what they do. And it's literally 3 steps. So it's as simple and sort of easily implementable as possible.
Now, earlier when we were talking, you said you were very familiar with the sugar daddy, sugar baby kind of relationships. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So as part of the program, my general principle, my general approach for the average guy is to not be relying 100% on online platforms, whatever they are. I feel that often a 100% reliance on online only can end up with guys creating a feeling of kind of scarcity a lot of the time. It can start to make you kind of doubt yourself. And if nothing else, right, even if you're getting a lot of matches and things are working really well online, you still have to know how to interact with that person in the real world, right? You still have to have those skills anyway. So it's always best to have meeting in person as your kind of default route, and then you can add an extra layer of abundance and choice.
Now, let me ask Angie, our co-host, because that's a good point. Are you finding that men sometimes they have better skills online, and then when you meet them in person, they're lacking?
Not so much that they're lacking in person. I think what I've really realized over the last year of like the intermixing of online and interpersonal dating is that men aren't very authentic about what they want online. Like they don't narrow it down correctly. So like it's like when people are online, and not just men but women as well, when we're online and we're making our profile, I don't feel like it's oftentimes a very authentic representation of like who we are. So then we meet that person and we find out they're really looking for something quite a bit different.
I have a question for you actually on that, because I was just talking to a client literally yesterday, I think it was, and he was making this almost exactly the point that you're making, where he's like, well, what I'm finding is that I'm matching with a lot of girls, and they're saying in their profile that they want a long-term, they want sort of a long-term monogamous commitment. And right now where I'm at, I want to kind of be dating non-exclusively a bunch of different girls and having that abundance. And so he's like, but, I want to be authentic, but I guess, do I have to lie and pretend that I want that? And I see that a lot, right? I think this is what you're describing is a lot of guys sort of have this assumption that any sort of quality woman or any woman that I find attractive, will always by default want long-term, a monogamous long-term commitment. And so if that's not what I want right now, I'm going to have to pretend and lie about that. Is that true that you guys all want an exclusive monogamous commitment, or are you guys open to the possibility of
women?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want an exclusive monogamous relationship at all in my life right now. In fact, I think there are lots of women out there who really enjoy having more open types of relationships, which is definitely more my field in life. But going back to what you were saying, I think that like with the online profile, the thing is it's kind of like doing an online personality quiz or like one of those quizzes in a magazine, right? You answer the questions the way you kind of think you want them to be answered, or they should be answered. So you're not always being honest. And I think especially for women, it's not very popular for women to put themselves out there in a way that appears that they could be whorish or sluttish. So they tone it down, even though that might totally be their route.
Yeah, I totally agree. And for you guys, it's it's a terrible double standard, and is way worse for you, because there's all this societal pressure that shouldn't be a slut or whatever. So you have to kind of pretend that way. Whereas for a guy, like if you're dating a lot of girls, or whatever, you're like a stud, and it's only positive.
Yeah. In fact, it makes the girls want you more, and it makes the men want the girls more too. And like women, we have to catch up. We have to catch up to you guys on that one.
So what's been your experience? I know that you said that you've actually used Seeking as part of your coaching a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, going back to that point. So my core focus and kind of the core skills and the bulk of what I take guys through is a method and a system so that they can take advantage of the everyday situations, as they're walking, grabbing a cup of coffee, they're going to meet friends, they're at a restaurant, or they're at like a lounge or whatever it is, or at a bar. They know that they always will have the structure and always be able to go up and at least start a conversation, see if there's a connection, get a phone number, set up a date, etc. And on top of that, I want to arm them with everything possible so that they can have, as much abundance to play with as possible. Because I think the biggest thing for both men and women a lot of the time, but I think especially more for men, is most guys like me in university are arriving into a relationship and getting into a relationship, not necessarily because this is their absolute perfect ideal person, but because they're coming from a place of scarcity, right? They're like, this is probably the best I can get, so I should just go along with this and agree to maybe a type of relationship that isn't really what I want, and all the rest of it. And so I want them to have so many choices that they know that when they do get into whatever type of relationship they want to have, it's with somebody that they're choosing from a place of quality options and choice, and a place of abundance, not from a place of scarcity and fear of loss. And so to do that, on top of that, we can also add in more abundance from various online platforms, and Seeking is one of those platforms that I recommend that they get on. And in navigating that, the thing that I say to them is that it's not what they think. I think there's a lot of misconceptions and stuff around there. But I'll say very often, a lot of the girls who are on there are there just looking for a better quality guy, not to have this transactional relationship where they're just getting money out of you, essentially for sex. And there's a lot of girls who you can, just by having a little bit of a chat and connecting and then going on a date with, you don't necessarily have to put yourself into a classical sort of sugar daddy situation in order to connect with and go on dates and find someone really awesome on those sites.
What other online sites are you coaching them to use? Because I've tried the others with just dismal success, like absolute failure.
Yeah, I mean, I was never one that got an enormous amount of matches and things online. And one of the things I often make the point of is by putting a photo on somewhere like Tinder, right? Mm-hmm. You're automatically, as a guy, commoditizing yourself. There's millions of other guys all doing the same thing, and all the girls have to go off is basically one photo,
right?
Like whatever your best photo is all they're going to see and make their decision on. So you're making a woman use what is traditionally more of a masculine way of becoming attracted, right? Like in general with men, we will look at looks first, and then if she passes the looks test, then we're curious about her personality and who she is. But if she doesn't pass the looks test, like that's it. Mm-hmm. Whereas women, for the most part, of course, everyone's different, will tend to be factoring in looks as well as your personality and your intelligence and your sense of humor and how successful you are, and all of these things simultaneously, right? Which is why building the skill of being able to meet someone in person, there's a lot more leverage. It doesn't matter. You can work on all these other areas that you do have control over, and then your looks won't be as big of a deal. Whereas online on Tinder or something, that's all they have to go off.
Yeah, I think it's tricky with the online because there's been a lot of times, whether it's, Seeking or whether it's traditional online dating websites, that the picture doesn't fit the personality necessarily of the person that you're talking to, and you meet in person And this person, the more you speak with them, becomes so much more attractive. Or you'll meet someone who's really attractive in their picture and even in person. But then the more you spend time with them, like the less attractive they become, obviously, right? It's just like, to me, it's a big notorious pitfall.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're as a guy, like your looks will get you a little bit of extra, maybe a little bit of extra leeway, like a little bit of extra time. Like you'll get your foot in the door easier, but you still have to have some substance there. You still have to have some kind of personality. You still have to be able to create some kind of connection. Otherwise, what's the point?
100%.
So how do people get in touch with you? Like, do you do seminars? Do you do one-on-one coaching? How does that work?
Yeah, so I have the site ryanblack.us, and there's a kind of choose your own adventure there of where you want to take it. In general, I do these programs. The bulk of what I do is it's a program called 90 Day Girlfriend. So taking guys from literally a standing start, like they've never even approached a girl, and taking them through via the online course and then the in-person workshop every single tool they need to be able to be going out, meeting lots of women, going on lots of dates, and then deciding from a place of quality options and choice and abundance who they want to be their next girlfriend.
So you've come up, just looking over some of the things that you're promoting on your website, you've come up with some messaging techniques?
Yeah, so this is a little messaging script that you can grab. It's for free on the site. That's just some tactics, some useful tools for pretty much any dating app. It will work on Seeking, work on Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, all of them, to be able to just get out of that. I think the biggest pitfall for like the average guy is just the very first message. Well, there's a few things, right? So there's the quality of the written bio, right? So I have a system that's based on online marketing and writing sales copy and stuff like that, of how to write a bio in a way that grabs someone's attention, creates interest and then desire in you, and then importantly gets them to take some kind of action. So this is a way of writing a bio in a way that gets women to be messaging you, having passive opportunities coming in versus you having to kind of make the first move. The second is photos. So there's a bunch of stuff about how to create and get the best photos on your bio as possible. And then I think the final thing is that first message, right? A lot of guys kind of wanting to hedge their bets and maybe be play it safe. And so what ends up happening is they send a first message that, because they're trying to not say anything that might rock the boat or be offensive or be taken the wrong way, it ends up being incredibly boring. Mm-hmm. Right. And I'm sure that's well,
I know the women complain all the time because they get bombarded with messages and they're like, can men just be unique? Like, hey, what's up? How's your day? How's your weekend going? Blah, blah, blah. Like, they're looking for something unique.
Yeah, but then we also complain if it's like one of those, if it's too canned.
Yeah.
Then we complain about that too. Mm-hmm. So it's finding that like middle nuance. What I find really interesting about what you're saying, Ryan, is like from a marketing standpoint, like it's kind of like, originally you were using the commercial that like brought everybody. It didn't matter who it was, but anybody to your store. Mm-hmm. And then you'd filter through and whoever wanted to buy would buy. And now it's kind of like you've taken that concept and you've taught people how to find their target market, so to speak. So now they're finding people more within their circle that they would really, truly, possibly be interested in. And then they can whittle that down to a more defined, like better match.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's actually one of the principles that I teach, this idea of like, I basically use the analogy of dating, like creating basically like a marketing or sales funnel, right? You want to have this kind of wide net at the top of potential interest and things like that. And then you're just taking people through kind of a process where, you encourage them to move to the next step and move to the next step and move to the next step. And you'll always lose a percentage along the way as you take someone from sort of totally cold or just getting to know you through to maybe exchanging, phone numbers to going on a date and stuff like that. But I think that sort of, to visualize it like that, or to use that analogy, helps guys not take inevitable rejection, like a certain percentage. Nobody is making 100% of people that they meet, want to see them again and want to date them. Like that's an impossible goal. But a lot of guys take those inevitable no's as like this personal thing. It's like, oh, you're rejecting who I am at the core of my soul. When to visualize it like, well, it's pretty much essentially it's a numbers game like anything else. And I always take the example, like online, a really good high converting sales page that would be like everybody would be happy with it is 5%. That means that 95% of the people that hit that page don't buy.
Yeah, 5% is amazing numbers. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you were a business owner and you got like personally offended that 95% of the people that hit your sales page didn't buy, well, you wouldn't last very long. But yet guys are taking like the odd rejection here or there as like, oh, this is the end of the world, when it's like the vast majority of people that you ever meet like probably won't like you, and that's okay.
Yeah. So in your course, I know that I feel very comfortable online dating because I can, the rejection is very easy to take. I've had people block me. I've messaged them and they'll block me. I'm like, fuck you, whatever. It doesn't matter, right? But it's so hard to take in person, and that's what the fear of talking to somebody at a bar or in a club or something sometimes becomes overwhelming. I mean, do you address that with your students?
Yeah, I mean, so, and this is something that I talk about a lot. Is I think the online, there's less of that feeling. It's a lower risk, but therefore lower reward strategy, right? So you get rid of the feeling or the sting of rejection in person, but also because that's so attractive, that's such an attractive proposition to so many guys, you end up having way more, like the pool of competition becomes way higher because everybody wants to not have that sting of rejection. And so the conversion rate, right? So the average match rate for a guy on Tinder is less than 1%.
Right. Don't you think most of us actually end up in serious relationships with the people that we work with, we go to school with, or that we interact with in some way in real life because we build some kind of relationship and rapport with that person, I would say.
But the problem there is so many people now are working from home. Yeah. And they're not, they don't have the office to go to and have the office romance or meet people there.
We just need to bring back speed dating.
Speed dating.
Like it could be speed sugar dating. That would actually be fun. We could do some speed sugar meet and greets. Yeah. But like that face to face, I think people kind of crave it. I know that online dating is convenient and like you can filter through mass amounts of people and have multiple conversations at once. And I think that certainly like stimulates a certain part of the brain.
Well, the nice thing is everybody's there for the same reason.
But are they?
Most are.
Well, it depends on what the reason is.
Well, I mean, they're there looking for somebody.
Right.
Whereas if I'm out in a supermarket, nobody picks up anybody at a supermarket anymore. That used to be one of the places they would say.
Haven't you heard if you hang your bananas on the side of the car, like if you have a pineapple, you're
Wait, is that a thing? Or are you just making that up?
No, there really are certain things that you do, and
I'm unaware of them.
See, that's probably why it doesn't work. We need like a singular format.
I just feel like in a larger city, if I walk up to a strange woman in a supermarket, she's gonna look at me like I am crazy. But you're saying those fears in my head?
Yes, because here's what I'm going to tell you. And this isn't not to try to revert back to your dating 101 basics from when you were in like university, Ryan, but it depends on how you're approached. Mm-hmm. Like it just depends.
Yeah. And isn't it, Ryan, that's some of the course from like pickup artist stuff, right?
What I'd say to you is exactly that, is that you have a bunch of limiting beliefs around like, oh, well, this person wouldn't be receptive to it, or they wouldn't like it, or they look at me crazy, whatever. And in my experience, again, I've been doing this over a decade. I've taught hundreds and hundreds of students, like personally. And so between myself, my mentors and friends and my students, this is the accumulation of probably hundreds of thousands of interactions. I can tell you that as long as you do, again, you use the structure and you do it in the best possible way, the average rejection is usually something along the lines of, "Oh my God, that's so nice of you. That's so sweet of you.
Yeah.
Right.
Unfortunately, I have a boyfriend, but thank you, you made my day." That's the average rejection.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if the average rejection were that, why not just do that all the time?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the old days, your doorbell would ring when we were kids, and oh my gosh, somebody's at the door. We'd go to the door, see who it is. Now, when the doorbell rings, like we hit the floor, turn off the lights, nobody's home, don't make a noise.
And check our Ring app.
Yeah, I mean, things have changed so much.
There's a great comedian. He's an Italian guy. I forget.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
forgetting
what
his name.
I've heard
But
his
he does a
routine.
sketch. He does that exact joke, and
Yeah.
it's so funny. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
it's very true.
Manus
It's
Doodle or
very
something
true.
like that,
And but what I'd say is this: if when you look at the surveys and you look at the studies, it's yes, society has shifted to a point where we're more, and especially over the last couple of years, right? Like for the last 2 years, right? Just going up to somebody at all and getting close to them was already like people like, whoa, right? But people, I would say more and more are crying out for
Yes.
connection, like more than ever.
I agree. I think everything is a pendulum. So I think it starts way over here and then it will swing to a very extreme opposite.
Mm-hmm.
But now I feel like with all of the online dating, we're at almost the peak of that pendulum swing, and people are starting to really crave just talking in person and meeting in person and having more.
Well, especially since the
Genuine.
last couple of years that we've kind of
Right.
all been holed up with masks on, and
Yeah.
people are really just craving to tear off the mask, be in front
Right.
of each other again.
I don't mind meeting online. I think it's a great place to make like a first hello introduction, but like I really crave very quickly having a personal meetup or meeting right after that. I'm tired of the talking for a week or two
Yeah.
through text and online and this not in person, not interpersonal type of relationship thing we've gotten into.
So, Ryan, when you coach people during online dating, I like to meet as quickly as possible, much for the same reasons that Angie just stated. What's your philosophy on that? Should they have a lot of interaction online to get
Yeah.
to know that person better, or just
Absolutely right. I was just telling a client this just yesterday as well. Is my philosophy is very much what I give guys is basically here's like a plan A. Here's the structure for plan A. Pretty much use this, and if for some reason something drops off along the way or that you hit a roadblock, then you can kind of calibrate from there. But my plan A, like default route, is as few messages as possible from hi to phone number to go on a date.
I like that.
I like it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had an interesting conversation. A girl asked me, "So, what are your pet peeves?" And it was just kind of an opener. And I'm telling you what, I got going. I thought that was, and then
Did
I
you?
said, and what are yours? And she started telling me. I thought it was a really good kind of an icebreaker opening message.
It's interesting actually. A lot of the time when you ask, I have a few sort of this game called the question game and a few questions that I sort of love to ask. Whatever this is, especially for a first date, it's a fun game to play. And what I've noticed is asking someone about, for example, the qualities that they look for in a partner and things like that, like the sort of the positive looking forward thing, that someone's goals and aspirations and things like that. You can often connect on a lot of that stuff, but for whatever reason, I guess it's just human nature, we seem to really connect way more on stuff we fucking hate. I don't know what it
because
is.
we don't really feel judged on the things that we don't like, right? Because we unequivocally know I don't like this. But if you're asking me to name the qualities I'm looking for in a person, immediately my brain thought pattern goes to, I don't want to say something that's not him because I don't want to offend him.
Yeah.
Right. And then he's like a micro
penis.
penis guy.
Yeah.
Like, right.
Or sometimes guys don't have control of that.
No, I meant that was an extreme example. Okay. But right, we don't want to say the wrong thing.
Right.
It's fine. You can be a size queen. It's not a problem. My girlfriend is. It's okay.
Nice.
But I think it's easy because if you ask us something we don't like, we own that. That's just me not liking this. If you're asking me what I'm looking for, then I'm trying to answer according to what I think you want to hear. And that's a very different platform.
That goes right into this whole thing. So one of the sort of concepts I talk about is this idea that we have this ego that comes that a lot of the time takes us away from our authentic self and is actually the thing often holding us back from getting whatever results we want in life, right? So we have this ego that's monitoring about how the outside world should be perceiving us, right? This sort of facade we believe we should create in order for people to like us or give us validation or whatever it is. Men and women often on a date are doing this thing because the guy has this ego, this facade. The woman has this ego and this facade, right? So the girl is going in being like, hide the crazy, make sure he doesn't, just tell him these things he wants to hear. It's like,
instead of owning the crazy.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Like,
I'll show that to him later.
Right.
I'm a good girl and all this stuff, and I'm not this like sexual slut or whatever it is. And so she's having to portray this side, and the guy's like, oh yes, I've got everything together, and I'm James Bond, and
and he lives in his parents' basement,
and all this stuff, right? Exactly. And so the way I say is like when you have this facade communicating to this facade, it's like someone's automatic email autoresponder replying to somebody else's automatic email autoresponder, and it's just going back and forth. But are these two people actually connecting? No.
I'm going to agree with you on that.
That we think is you're supposed to say, and the other person's responding to that. And it's like, what are you protecting yourself against from somebody being like, I don't like you? Well, that's going to happen anyway.
But it is you, right? Because your truth is always your truth. I will 100% agree with you on that, because now, like when I go on dates, this is who I am. It's okay if you're not okay with it. It's okay if you're great with it. Doesn't matter. This is just who I am though. And I'm not going to change for you or anyone else. So we either work or we don't. And I mean, it's in a much nicer way than that. But I will say that my dates go 1,000% better now that I'm just
or they end very quickly,
right? Which is totally fine too, because then I don't want to waste my time. And I don't know. Do you think dating gets a little bit easier, Ryan, as you get older, because you just don't want to waste the time? Do you think it's harder when you're younger?
I think what it is like something happens as we go through. Once you, I think like in your teens, right? The whole thing is fitting in, right? So you will do everything you can. I certainly did this. Right, everything you can to suppress really your authentic self in order to make sure that you are accepted by at least one group in kind of high school or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you go to university and you have an opportunity to reinvent yourself and maybe be part of a new different social group that accepts you. And then you enter the world of work where actually standing out and being different and being unique is way more important than fitting in. Right. Yeah. If you're the same as everybody else, you can't stand out in a job interview or whatever it is. And so as we go through into our 30s, we care less and less about needing to fit in, so we're able to just express ourselves more authentically. And one of the things that, going back to the dating thing is like my late father always used to say, who's a great businessman, his second favorite response in a business deal was a quick no. Because he's like, if I get a fast no, then I won't invest any time in trying to figure out if this deal is going to work or not. And so that's my thing from the messaging itself and the thing all the way through to how to actually go up and start a conversation. My default thing is don't try and like hide anything or whatever it is. Just go all in and be like, this is me. So if you think that that's horrible and gross, just tell me right now so I don't invest any time and waste my time trying to make this work. And if you think that's super awesome, then great, let's continue this interaction. And it just makes life so much easier.
So much easier. And it's not easy at first. It's one of those things that just take practice. Like you just have to kind of keep trying it a little bit more.
Right.
So, yeah. And then the no's get easy and actually kind of nice, like Ryan said.
Yeah, there's actually been times where I'm kind of trying to find somebody to start dating. And there's been times I actually appreciate being able to eliminate a person.
Right.
Yeah. Like I go there, it's not kind of what I want. I'm like, oh, well, now I don't have to worry about this one. I can move on to maybe I've got 2 or 3 else that I want to kind of interview.
There's lots of people out there. Yeah. It's not like, I don't understand like this philosophy that we're short on choices in the dating world. I mean, we might be short on acceptance and not like rejection. But
Ryan
we're not
certainly
short
felt
on
like
choices.
It was short because it took him till university to get his first girlfriend.
Well, that was because of childhood programming.
Hey, and I want to know, Ryan, too. I've been meaning to ask you this during this interview, but I haven't been able to get back to it. What happened to her?
Oh, good question.
Were you
What
not in
happened?
love?
What happened to? Yeah, I mean, look, I recognized through. I would say in general, most relationships last longer than they should, and it's usually one or both partners being like, well, the safety and certainty and security of staying in this feels right now better than the uncertainty of jumping out of it and maybe not ever finding anything better. And that for me, that was it. It's like,
Okay.
was this person my absolute soulmate who was like perfect and amazing and super hot and super attractive or whatever? No.
But
It
nobody
was
else.
just literally, I had no reference experience of any other,
Yeah.
attractive woman ever taking any interest in me.
Right.
Right.
So
So that began your journey of trying to figure out this whole dating game.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was. I wasn't even looking around, or even I didn't even have the idea. Like for me, my mindset before my friend handed me the book, my mindset was some guys are born, attractive and alpha and confident, and some guys are born nerdy and weird looking and whatever, and that's life. And the nerdy weird looking ones, you don't get to date attractive women, and that's just how life is. And then he gave me a book which said that there was, psychological techniques you could use to overcome the fact that you were kind of weird looking. And that gave me it was the first moment where I was like, oh, you can actually like develop yourself and work on yourself and stuff like that. To me, that was literally just not a possibility.
Right.
Well, we had a sugar daddy guest. His name was Daniel a few episodes
Daniel.
ago. And he kind of found himself in the same boat as you. He classified himself as, a little nerdy, a little bit not as attractive as the regular guys. He was into science and stocks and investing. And he's finding great success now because he's gained the confidence. He's makes quite a bit a year, and he's
He
kind of
owns it.
overcome a lot of those things. Yeah.
I think what we're mislabeling is that men and women are calling nerdy and or whatever else you want to say as insecure, or they're not confident. And those are two very different things. Women love nerds, guys. Give me a nerd any day of the week. I want to talk quantum physics with you. You know me.
Right.
Like, we'll have great conversations.
Yeah.
Most of my girlfriends love men that are nerds. But a lot of people who are deemed nerds don't have a lot of social interaction experience. So they don't come off as confident.
Right.
So they don't get the girl. Confident nerds are sexy as fuck.
Well, there you go, Ryan.
Yeah, and that's it. That's exactly my point. A lot of time to guys is there's this stuff out there, whether a lot of the vast majority of the pickup stuff, it was developed in nightclubs here in LA, in the sort of late 90s or whatever. And then you have this sort of red pill movement these days where it just shows a total lack of understanding of and experience with women, really, because they just say like, oh, all women want you to be this alpha, basically like the like alpha super confident like bro who's like jumping up and down with a bottle of champagne and VIP at the
Jersey
nightclub at 2 a.m.
Shore.
It's fun for a weekend.
And it's like, yeah, a lot of women are probably into that, but it's completely discounting the fact that women, like you were just saying, have types and types of guys that they're into, and that will differ. Like for some women, and then guys will have these limiting beliefs. Oh, I'm nerdy or whatever. That was one of mine. Or things like, I'm shorter than whatever,
Right.
6 foot tall or something. For every woman that's for whom height is a deal breaker, there's another woman for whom it's not particularly important to her.
I really
And
like
so,
how you said that. It's it really is. It's the limiting belief. It's where we have taken something we don't like about ourselves or think other people will find attractive. And so we limit ourselves based on that instead of showing confidence.
Absolutely. And the thing with confidence is this is one of the things I talk about a lot, which I got from my friend and mentor, Marcus Oki of yourcharismacoach.com, where he will often say confidence is bullshit. And what he means by that is like, it's not that it's not real, but it's not something that guys actually need to worry about. Like, oh, I have to have, because it becomes a limiting belief, which becomes sort of this catch-22. It's like, oh, well, I want to, get more results. I want to go out there. I want to meet more people. I want to start more conversations, but I'm not confident yet. So I need to get this confidence first, and then I'll be able to go up and start that conversation. Or it's like, well, that isn't how it works. What happens is that once you have like some kind of system, once you're doing something, once you're taking some kind of action, just by repeated taking action, the confidence will just naturally happen as a byproduct. And the point I often make to guys is like, I'll often ask them like, the beginning of the coaching, it's like, so you say that when it's an attractive woman, you feel this lack of confidence, or you feel anxious or nervous or whatever it is. And they're like, yeah. It's like, do you feel that same feeling when you're hanging out with a bunch of guy friends? It's like, oh no. It's like, so when you're hanging out with a bunch of guy friends, can you be funny and charismatic and tell a funny story or make a funny joke? Oh yeah, totally. So it's not that you don't have it. Mm-hmm. It's just that situation is triggering anxiety, and you're suppressing your natural ability to connect with the girl, because you're going in your head like, oh, I have to say the right thing. I have to say the perfect thing. I have to be alpha. Yeah. I have to be charismatic. I have to be confident and all this stuff. And you're just going in your head so that you're unable to be present and connect.
And then you mess it all up.
My thing is just like by giving them kind of like training wheels and kind of a structure and a roadmap that gives them that certainty, they can start to be the guy who they actually are around their friends, and start to display what appears to be confidence, even if they have zero reference experience of dating an attractive girl.
So we're going to build Marcus some training wheels to put on his shopping cart, so he can go into the store with a pineapple or some bananas hanging off the edge and approach girls.
I'm happy where I'm at. Thank you. Hey, Ryan, we're running out of time. But tell everybody where they can find you, your social media and all that good stuff.
You can find me on Facebook. My name is Ryan Black. You'll see a photo of me. And on my website, ryanblack.us.
All right. Well, we appreciate your insight. I think men could find it very helpful, whether you're sugar dating, whether you're traditional dating, whether you're in-person dating. I think you got a lot of great nuggets there from a guy who struggled in the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. And has found some success. So,
well, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Guys, if you want to share your crazy dating stories, go to our website, secretsofasugardaddy.com, and you can find us everywhere, but we really appreciate a follow on Instagram at Secrets of a Sugar Daddy, and message me there. And until next episode, bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. If you'd like to connect or even be on the show, we'd love to hear from you at secretsofasugardaddy.com.